We're good.
Yeah, we're always scrapping and clawing, but we didn't get to where we were. It was 34 years.
Yeah.
All right. This could actually be a little bit louder, but thank you everyone for coming. First, I'd like to thank all the speakers. There might be a couple more streaming in as the panels go on, but my first thank you goes out to you guys. Williamstown is not the closest destination, so we really appreciate you guys getting here. Thanks to everyone in the crowd for coming. I really appreciate the student engagement on campus over the course of this past year. And I have a special shout out for the team that has helped put this together. I'm Amy Gariokas. I'm one of the co-founders of the Williams Venture Studio, who's helping run this event, with also sponsorship from Lever. And Jeffrey Thomas, thank you for coming. So thank you so much. This team has done a great job. The marketing, the alumni outreach, the logistics to make this event happen. None of this would have been possible without you guys, so I really appreciate your help. And thank you everyone for coming. It's going to be a great event. Pass the business model.
So welcome everybody. It's wonderful to see you all here. I wanted to particularly thank Tonio for all his support for entrepreneurship at Williams. Since I have the mic, I'm going to take a little moment to do that. Thank you. So it's exciting to have been invited to chair the first panel conversation on mission-oriented organizations, which is our topic, with my three wonderful panelists next to me. Misha Medvedev, who is a recent graduate who co-founded the eco-focused startup Earth Cups. And then next to him we have Peggy Kim from the class of '91, who is the founder and CEO at the Future Now Media Foundation, an educational nonprofit focused on the media industry. And Mike Curtin from the class of '86, who is the CEO of DC Central Kitchen, which is a social venture targeting hunger and poverty. So it's very exciting to have all of you here, and I look forward to our conversation together. So I've been instructed that this is a casual conversation, so we're going to just spend a few minutes chatting together. I have a list of questions. I actually forgot to ask the organizers if I meant to leave time for the audience to ask questions. Is that a thing I should do at the end? Okay, so I'm going to do that to save a little time at the end. But let me kick things off. So the organizations that you all lead are slightly different from each other, of course, in terms of how they're structured. So for example, businesses versus nonprofits. But they do all have a strong focus on mission, which is the focus of our conversation today. That is on solving important problems related to climate and hunger, poverty, and education. So I'm wondering if you could each just take 2 to 3 minutes to describe your background before taking on these leadership roles, and then describe the organizations you're now dedicating your time to, the goals, and how you're working to accomplish them. That would be great. And maybe we'll just go down the line, starting with our most recent entrepreneur and working our way down the line, sorry.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Mom, for the intro, and thanks everyone for coming and setting this event up and inviting me. It's an honor to be here and speaking here. Yeah, my name is Misha. I'm the co-founder of Earth Cups. I graduated last June. And yeah, I mean, I don't have a lot of experience. I'm sure they have a lot more than I do, but it's been really fun. I grew up very entrepreneurial. I always knew that I had kind of that drive and spirit to me, and always knew I wanted to start something. And during my time here at Williams, I started a couple of things. Started with Earth Caps, where we donated $5 for every hat that we sold to different environmental organizations, and then yeah, transitioned to Earth Cups, kind of really the replacement for Solo cups, right? I'm sure everyone's familiar with the red plastic Solo cup. Around 8 billion are used on college campuses every year. They all end up in the landfills and they're not recyclable. And so we knew when we go into a store, you want to find an eco-friendly brand and solution and alternative to that. So yeah, it's been really fun. It's been a great year post-college, working on the business full-time, and Williams has allowed me to really thrive and succeed at that, so yeah.
Thank you. Peggy, how about you?
Hi everyone, such a pleasure to be here. It's been a while since last was on campus. It's pre-pandemic and it looks even more different than the last time I saw it. But so my background is in media and entertainment, and as you all know, we don't have that kind of a major here. I was a poli-sci major, comparative politics, studied Russian, Soviet East European politics, and intended to become a journalist, and did go into the media, went into journalism and then documentary filmmaking. And so most of my jobs prior to being an entrepreneur has been with major media companies like ABC, NBC, CBS, and I was a programming and production executive at History Channel for many years. Future Now Media Foundation, I did not intend, nor was the word entrepreneurial or entrepreneur ever in my imagination. Like, I didn't ever think, oh yeah, someday I'm gonna be an entrepreneur. I ended up being one, but it's not because I was intentionally like, I want to be an entrepreneur. What happened was I was seeing, you know, over the course of my, at that point, 2 decades in the industry, seeing some needs in the industry, constant challenges that, you know, particularly around diversity, equity, and inclusion. And experiencing that myself as a woman and as a person of color, just some of the challenges that I had faced coming up through my career, and to see that young people, even, you know, with the access to internet and all these amazing technologies, we're still having the same kinds of issues that I was having. I was like, there's something systemically happening. What is happening? Where are the obstacles? And how can I help solve for those problems? And I really developed a heart for young people and future leaders, because you are all future leaders. And so that's how the heart of the Future Now Media Foundation came to be, which is to help build future leaders coming into media and entertainment, providing access, providing knowledge and shared information and opportunities, and ability to connect into the industry while you're still in school, so that by the time you're going after internships and jobs, you have a network that you can tap into and community that you can tap into early on. So I am an entrepreneur, but unintended.
The accidental.
Thank you. Mike, how about you?
Thank you. As everyone has said, it's great to be here. It's really an honor. I thank the incandescent Mark Bissell for inviting me here. I always love to do stuff on campus. But I do have to admit that being in this room, in this building, is a little tough for me. And one could say this started me on the path that I have been on now at DC Central Kitchen for over 18 years, but not in necessarily a good way. So I, like many people, came to Williams thinking that I was going to be was a pre-med. And then in this very building, different name back then, I took Math 107. It didn't work out the way I had that planned. And so I desperately needed to find courses that did not end in ology and create a new major and a whole new path for my life. So I left this quad and never really came back. So it's interesting to be back here. But I ended up at the college I was a religion major, focusing on Asian or Eastern religions, went and lived in Japan, and sort of through working at a bar in my neighborhood in Osaka, Japan, got really interested in hospitality, ended up going back to DC, being hired by a Japanese family that had purchased a very historic luxury property right across from the White House, and went on this path of working towards owning my own restaurant, which I ended up doing. So I guess that would be my first entrepreneurial adventure. But like Math 107, that didn't work out exactly as I had planned it either, and I say now that was my first experience in the nonprofit sector, was owning my own restaurant. And there are some of my Williams College classmates, maybe even a couple that are in this room, I had the courage to invest in that, and sorry about that, guys. But anyway, so after that led me to DC Central Kitchen, where a lot of these roads I was able to bring that entrepreneurial, I guess, drive. And again, I too am sort of embarrassed that I don't really think of myself in that way. I do think of the work that we do in that way. And we talk not necessarily about social enterprise, but about righteous enterprise. And developing businesses that will not only employ many of the individuals that we train, folks that have had significant and often systemic barriers to employment, like histories of incarceration, addiction, homelessness, abuse, or other traumas, for jobs in the restaurant business, but creating businesses like locally sourced scratch-cooked school food. We just opened our 3rd social enterprise cafe. We market or deliver and sell and deliver fresh fruits and vegetables, cut fruits and vegetables to corner stores in our city's food apartheid areas, and generate close to $12 million a year that supports the organization, but employs many of these men and women at living wages with living benefits, and set an example for the hospitality sector and others to show what's possible if you think a little differently about your enterprise and you think about different bottom lines and the value that those can bring to the community at large.
Wonderful, thank you. And I'll just point out to the students in the room the sort of theme of twisted routes from one place to another rather than predetermined pathways, something we were talking about a couple minutes ago in the hallway. That is the common story, actually, I think, not the atypical one. Even for folks who go out of the gate thinking, I want to do an X or a Y, it can be quite a twisted journey in many senses of the term. So you guys are all focused on big problems, big goals. These are climate problems, structural inequities, food insecurity. Like, these are really big problems, and you are individuals. And so I think it would be really interesting, I think, for our audience, particularly for students who often, I think, have big dreams and aspirations, how you think about sort of entering into those large spaces and being just a single person trying to make a difference. I don't have to go down the row this way, so if one of you wants to just jump in, that would be lovely.
Okay, the older guy, I guess I'll go first.
Excellent.
You're right. I'm often asked the question, some version of this question, what's the secret sauce at DC Central Kitchen? Why does it work? And one of the answers I give is that our founder, Robert Egger, was not a social service guy. He wasn't a guy who did a lot of volunteering. He wasn't a guy who set out to change the way we think about hunger and food access and food justice. He worked in nightclubs. And bars. I was a hospitality guy. I had done a lot of volunteering as a young person, but I never saw that as my career. That's what it would be. So we've always approached these issues from a different perspective, and have never taken on that burden of we're going to solve hunger, we're going to fix poverty. We're not. And I think if you try to, I believe that if I woke up every morning and said, my job is to end hunger, and if I don't, I fail, that's a tough way to live. That is hard. But what we do know is that we can keep trying, we can elevate the conversation, and the way we do our work, we call it relentless incrementalism. And every day, we just want to make something a little better, a little bolder, a little faster, a little more innovative. If we do that, and if we break the cycle of poverty every day for one person in one family, and see how the generational ripples of that can really change not just those individual lives, but communities, then we can get at these larger issues of hunger and poverty and equity and justice and access. So I think by looking at this as a business, as that social, from that enterprise perspective, it makes it easier, in my mind, to take this on, knowing that if we just do this a little bit today, we're going to have a better tomorrow.
Go ahead.
Yeah, for us, since the very beginning, it's the idea was, what can we do as students to make a very, very little dent in stopping climate change, right? Climate change. Plastic pollution is in the news every single day. Never do we wake up and say, look, similarly, are we going to stop plastic pollution and replace all the plastic in the world with plant-based products? Nor are we going to fix climate change, right? But for us, every day, it's okay, every single cup that we replace, every single solo cup that we replace with a plant-based cup is an incremental change to one less plastic cup going into the landfill and one more corn-based or renewable energy cup going out there and educating someone. Again, solo cup produces and sells tens of billions of solo cups every year. Are we going to stop them tomorrow? Absolutely not. But that's why we've created this grassroots movement of finding all the next generation people that really want to come together and try to make an impact together with it. The plastic industry is huge. I can't even put it into perspective, really. Less than 1% of it right now is plant-based and compostable products and products made from renewable energy. And that's going to change in the next 10 years. It's going to grow really significantly, so it's really a matter of not me as an individual or my co-founder, but it's really all coming together and telling a story and making a change together.
Thank you.
All I would say is ditto. I mean, it is, I think you want to have kind of a big picture of the thing that you want to fix, or that problem that you want to fix. But you know, just like you were saying, it's those little steps in between, and you hope that those things will have ripple effects, so that it's not going to live and die with you, but the fact that you are investing in somebody else, or to me, it's about people. So for me, it's how do we invest in the next generation so that they can then invest in the next generation, so that we can eventually get to that place that looks different from where we are right now.
Thank you. And I'm curious, actually, sort of I'm a process person. I'm a little bit curious about how you get there from here to there, right? You know, wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to cure whatever social ill I'm working on. So you're going to put a process in place. And at the base, when you're talking about entrepreneurship, it's a process that involves creativity and innovation, as well as just the kind of hard work of putting those into place. So I'd love to talk about the role of creativity and innovation, but maybe we could do it through a particular example. We could start with Misha, which is, so when I first met you, I believe it was on a Zoom office hour, right? That was the first time he actually came to my office hours. And I believe it was to tell me about the hats. When you first came, and I own 3 of them, I think, right now, thanks to you. So you started by making earth caps, you and Peter. I think you mentioned that that allowed you to donate to select nonprofit organizations, but at some point you made a decision to change directions. So I guess I'm curious to hear a little bit more about that decision and when it happened, because by some later office hour, I was like, wait, what happened to the hats? So tell me how that evolution happened.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, kind of how we started was making earth caps, hats made from recycled plastic bottles. We sort of noticed that there's a lot of clothing companies out there making products and apparel from recycled plastic, but I always wore hats, and there was no hat company really doing that. So we thought it was a unique idea, and then we made hats, and I wanted to get a few to mod, and I didn't know how to, so I just dropped them outside your house, and thankfully you got them.
Zoom days.
Yeah. But anyway, that was the original idea, and we wanted to start there and make a difference, and that's really what allowed us to learn on how to make a product, how to brand it, how to produce it, how to sell it. I remember going to Nature's Closet on Spring Street and shaking, trying to sell them, some hats, and I remember the first time they gave me the first check after selling like 10 hats. But then we did that for quite a while, but then we realized, we kind of discovered the solo cup issue, right, and that there was no other alternative out there in stores, whereas in the dining halls there are plant-based cups and products that are being used, but there were never really cups made for again, barbecues or whatnot in the stores. So we realized we could, long story short, can make a bigger impact if we transition to the cups, because there's a much bigger problem of how much plastic pollution is out there, and that's what allowed us to scale.
So was that an aha moment, like middle of the night, we figured it out? Like, how exactly did you evolve that idea?
So it was during COVID, and so we were really bored, and Peter and I were FaceTiming, and we sort of were reminiscing on the times that we were using solo cups on Oxy, and sort of just were missing those days. But then we realized, look, we were using thousands and hundreds and thousands a month and whatnot, but we had our friends at Michigan and Wisconsin, these Big Ten schools, so oh my God, how many are they using? And we realized it was a huge problem, and so realized nobody else was doing it. Going back to the big plastics manufacturers out there in the world, Solo Cup, Dart, Pactive, Evergreen, they don't have an incentive to switch. They're comfortable continuing to produce plastic products, making a profit. They're not in a rush to switch. And so that's when we realized it really has to come from the bottom up. It really has to come from someone like us.
Thank you. So Peggy, maybe you could just talk a little bit about that question of sort of new ideas and how you, sort of the very beginning, and how innovation and creativity is built into your process.
Okay, let's see. How did we start? Honestly, it was I don't even know how to answer that question, honestly. I started with a group of friends who were colleagues in the industry, and I think part of the creative and innovative process is knowing when something's not working and moving, and we're like, okay, this is still not working, something is happening, and now we've got to fix this. My first lesson, which was a people lesson, I had amassed a group of really amazing people, colleagues in the industry, to start talking about this idea that didn't even have a name yet. And so we were meeting every couple of weeks, but I was doing all of the work and I was reporting to them. That was not the plan. I was like, everybody is supposed to contribute, not just me reporting to everybody else and putting all the pressure on me. And so I realized after a year, again, incredibly accomplished people with big jobs and big titles, and I was like, oh, you know what? I just put together a team of generals. And I don't need a team of generals, I need an army of workers who are actually going to do the work. And so that was one of my very first lessons. It took me a year to learn that lesson. And so then putting on this very first conference, which is how we established Future Now, a media and entertainment conference, it took 2 years, because it took the first year to make that mistake of having the wrong people together, and then finally putting the right people together, and then also trying to set expectations. And it's a volunteer organization, so everyone's got full-time day jobs, and I'm asking them to put more attention on this, and sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. And so for me, as the founder and the initiator of this, I couldn't wait for other people to get on board. I just had to blaze the trail, and then they would come to see what it is and then get on board. But that was the second lesson that I learned, because I had never thought of myself as an entrepreneur. It was not a word that was, I didn't even use it when, I don't think we really used it even here way back when, So that second lesson that I learned was, oh, I am somebody who can see something before it actually exists. So that is the definition of a visionary. You can actually see something before it is built. And then there are others who are not visionaries, but once you've built a prototype or you've created something that they can see, then they know how to plug in. And so those were two major lessons that I learned early on.
That's a very helpful distinction, actually. Wonderful.
Thank you.
So, Mike, do you want to tell us just a little bit about how innovation and creativity sort of functions in your
Sure.
daily praxis?
Sure. So I guess I also lived on Hoxie Street, and I as is my habit, I just tooled by there today, and there's a couple of houses that could use some of your cups. There's a lot of the red Solo on Hoxie this morning. So when I started at the kitchen about 18 and a half years ago, we weren't doing a whole lot of social enterprise. We were more of a straight sort of social service organization. We were getting food that was being donated from restaurants, hotels, caterers, turning that into healthy meals, giving that to organizations so they could invest their money in working with their clients to get them on a path of self-sufficiency. And while we did that, we were training individuals who were in that food line to get jobs in many of those same restaurants where we were getting food, so creating a really cool sort of tight circle of opportunity, empowerment, and liberation. But ultimately that wasn't terribly sustainable on its own. And so our big moment when we really sort of switched, and it's interesting that we moved into social enterprise from a very antisocial moment. I'll try to do this really quickly, but we were having let's just say a conflict with the District of Columbia government regarding the thousands of meals a day we were providing for their homeless shelters without getting any kind of compensation for that. And we were being asked to do more and better, and we wanted to do more and better, but we were on the brink of bankruptcy, going out of business. We went through a painful process it took about a year to get them to agree to pay us just a few pennies per meal. But they continued to drag their feet on getting the contract for this, and so we were being dismissed, we were being marginalized, not taken seriously, not being recognized for the economic value of the work that we do. And so we did something very antisocial, and we went on strike. And we said, until we get this contract, we are not going to deliver meals to the shelters. And what Robert, the founder, and myself decided to do to really put a fine point on this is we said that we're not going to, as long as we're not delivering meals to the shelters, we're not going to eat either. And so this became an 8-day fast, hunger strike, however you want to call it, that really called out the district, brought a lot of attention to what we were doing, and the kind of work that nonprofits, particularly social enterprise nonprofits, do. So after we ended up embarrassing the city into paying, getting this contract and paying us, we were able, that was our largest revenue, or only earned revenue stream, and we were able to start purchasing food that we hadn't done before. But we realized that we were just doing it like everyone else, and if we did it smarter, if we went directly to local farms and we bought what are called seconds, so product that's aesthetically or geometrically challenged in such a way that it doesn't really have a commercial value, we could expand our economic footprint into rural areas. And then we could get better meals. We could start processing this, so we could hire more of our graduates. We can engage more volunteers. We could promote graduates that were already working for us. And that started in 2006, 2008, when the recession hit, and nonprofits were freaking out, panicking, laying people off, cutting back programming, closing. We were in a position, because of this work that we were doing, to say we have a lot of opportunity here. What can we do that can be not only scalable but sustainable? And that's when we started to get into school food contracts, and that led to a larger contract in 2010, a renewal in 2015, and we are going through a process now where we hope to double the number of schools that we will be serving come next school year, that will add about probably another 50 jobs and about another $4.5 million of revenue, and millions of dollars going into local farms, that a lot of which we kept going during COVID. So it was one of these just sort of weird, in many ways, antisocial moment that we had, that we said, what are the resources that we have in front of us? How can we use them a little more creatively to do something that is going to change the direction of our work? And that's when we really became a full-fledged, a full-throated social enterprise.
That is certainly creative. I didn't see where we were headed, but that's a really interesting story. So I am going to open it up, but I would be remiss as the president of Williams if I didn't ask just a little bit about your Williams education and how it did or didn't get you where you are. I think that I could imagine that going in many directions, but I am curious, and Peggy, love to start with you.
I have my brother and my sister who followed me into Williams after me, so we bleed purple. I look upon my time at Williams with such love, and it's joy every time that I get a chance to come back to campus and to be with the students. How has it helped me? It helps me every day, but probably I'm not even thinking about it. One of the questions that students ask me, whether they're from Williams or other liberal arts colleges, is, I want to get into the media and entertainment industry. I want to, but what am I going to do with a liberal arts education? And I'm like, what do you mean, what are you going to do with liberal arts education? Of course, the value of the liberal arts education is so incredible, because it's helping you to think critically and ask the right questions. We don't need, no offense to those who have to push buttons. AI is going to take over that more and more, but you don't want to just be a button pusher, right? You actually want to have an active mind that's critically thinking about the problems and how to solve them. And I think that's one of the things that we benefit from the education that we get here. And so that, to me, has helped inform everything that I do, and also how I pour back into others, as mentoring is a huge part of who I am.
Thank you. Mike, do you want to add something?
Sure. Well, I love this place, and again, some of my best friends in the world are in this room. We're close. My wife is a Williams graduate classmate. This place gave me so much, and that's one of the reasons why I'm always happy to come back and be part of things like this. But I think it gave me just this, sometimes maybe a false sense of what I can do, and the belief that we can stitch together these different ideas and these different opportunities to create this really cool tapestry of hope, empowerment, and opportunity. And I think that really, like, that for me, that is what I took away from Williams, is that the potential really is limitless if you're willing to look at things, close your eyes and look with your third one and think about things a little differently. And that's where I think that's what I took away from Williams.
How lovely. Misha, you want to take a stab?
I didn't say this earlier, but I study economics. When people ask me what I studied, I say economics and earth cups. I spent a lot of time on it during my time here. But Williams has been tremendous. I mean, I really truly don't think I would have started earth cups or something else if I did go to another school. When I came to Williams on sort of my college tour, I remember distinctly, the tour guide saying, "Oh, Williams will teach you how to think." And I thought about that for years. I'm like, I'm not learning how to think. What does that mean? But the more I thought about it, and especially after I graduated, I really think just the different classes and the different opportunities that Williams has to offer allows you to elaborate your mind. And also, Williams is a hard place to study, right? I think we all know that. And I think that has helped tremendously being an entrepreneur or starting your own company, because things happen all the time, things pop up, there are fires. And so from the class's perspective, figuring out how to get a good grade, figuring out how to pass this class, it really transfers that knowledge and skill set into starting your own company or organization. So that's been awesome.
Thank you. So I do want to give the audience a chance to ask a question. So I'm going to turn it to you. I don't know do you want me to pass around a mic or just speak loudly? Okay, speak loudly. Is there somebody who would like to start off conversation today? If you're going to be entrepreneurial, you need to take a risk. Yeah, go ahead.
I have a question. How would you guys think about the process of starting a business while you're in college or right after college, especially coming from a liberal arts background such as Williams?
Do you want to start with that one?
Yeah. I like to think about it, and we've all heard this probably a lot of times, when we're young and in college, we have more free time than when we're older and have more serious responsibilities. And so the way I always thought about it is now is the best time to start something while I'm in college, while I have very little responsibilities. And I think Earth Cups didn't happen overnight. It was years of kind of just working on it after classes, in between tennis practices. And I think if you really feel like you have that in you and you really just want to spend your nights working on something over and over and over again, then you should definitely start, the earlier the better. And yeah, again, I think Williams has a lot to offer to the alumni network. Tonio Palmer, just a lot of resources here, especially the professors have helped me personally a lot, just think about ideas, and it's been awesome. Yeah.
So neither of you started one in college. Could you imagine having done so?
No, but I'm so impressed. I truly am incredibly impressed. And I mean, I think that's also a different world today. You have, the world is your oyster. You can create content, you can create your own channel, you can, start your own company. And it starts with the idea and the will and the perseverance, because it definitely takes perseverance to be an entrepreneur. It's easier to go into a corporate, culture and plug in and collect the salary. It's much harder because it's your livelihood on the line, so you have to make it happen. So I'm very much impressed.
So I'm the moderator, but I have a strong point of view about this, so I'm going to actually also just weigh in that I don't actually think there's ever any one right or wrong path, and it really does depend, and this is a good example of success. But I have seen a lot in my life on the other side, and I sometimes think trying to do too many things at once can be actually mean that nothing goes very well at all. And that one of the wonderful things about being in college is you have the time. And it was interesting how you answered the question about your education. I mean, one of the things you have the real luxury and privilege of when you're in college is a little bit of time just to think and to learn how to think and to make mistakes and to try things out. And all of those skills become so important later if you're gonna do whatever you do professionally, entrepreneurial or not. So I think of college as a time where you're expanding your mental acuity to be able to then go off and do any number of things, including entrepreneurial adventures. And I've just seen a lot of students sort of burn out because they tried to do too much at once.
So my answer, no, I could never imagine. With my Math 107 experience, could tell you that I didn't have that in me when I was here. But I think the important piece that Maud is mentioning is that I think it's important, at least from a social perspective, from a social enterprise perspective, the social good, social impact perspective, is to realize that you don't have to do this. You don't have to start a social enterprise. You don't have to start a social business. You don't have to work at a DC Central Kitchen and in the basement of a homeless shelter like I did for so many years to make an impact. You can drive good, you can drive impact in whatever field you go into. And I think this is one of the benefits of your generation. For as much shit as you guys take about, all like you want everything in one place, I think that's a good thing. We work in a world where I'm a .org. I'm defined by the 3 letters after the dot in our email address. I'm not a .com, so there's an understanding like, well, he does good, not well, right? So we have to we need the economic people over here, and we need the do-gooders over here, and they're very separate, and they're .com and .org, and why does it have to be that way? It shouldn't have to be that way. And I think that what I'd love to see, and I think you are doing it as a generation, is pushing, saying that's nonsense. I want all this stuff together. And so you don't have to start something to create something, to create good, to create change.
So enjoy the .edu on your way to those others, yes. Yes, please.
To what degree are you building a product versus to what degree are you building a movement?
Who's first?
I guess that was a little directed at me. I'll start. I think it's a good question. Initially, you have to start. The way I think about it is, initially you have to start with a product, right? You need to start somewhere. What Earth Cups is really about is really the movement. We have, I think, now over 4,500 ambassadors across 430 campuses across the U.S. These are students that signed up by themselves to be an ambassador because they felt something. They wanted to be a part of Earth Cups. They wanted to be a part of this mission of trying to replace polystyrene plastic cups with more compostable or biodegradable options. So I think they both go hand in hand, right? What we're trying to do moving forward is launch new cups and new products made out of new materials. So this is a cup, this is a 3D printed cup. It's not actually a cup we're selling, but in a month we're launching this cup in this shape out of algae and canola oil. And it becomes home compostable in your backyard and also marine degradable. And so that's product. But I think we wouldn't have gotten there if it wasn't a movement, and it wasn't because so many people cared about the issue and have been supportive of us.
Thank you. So I know there are 2 other panels, and I want to make sure that I do my moderator job of allowing us to transition to the next one. But let me thank our 3 wonderful panelists and the audience, and you do great work. It's really wonderful to hear about it, very inspiring. Thank you. Please join me in thanking them.